Perfect. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you all for joining us for this virtual Q&A session. My name is Tayler Shaw. I'm a student communications professional within CMCI, but I'm also a recent graduate. So I'll be the moderator for today, and we're all looking forward to answering your questions and giving insight into CMCI. But first, to start the event, I'd like to pass the microphone to CMCI's founding dean, Lori Bergen.
Well, thank you so much, Tayler. I'm so glad you're helping us do this today, and welcome to all of you. We're so excited for the coming year and all of the opportunities that it presents for our students. And of course, we all know these are such unusual times that we're living in, but I also know that at CMCI, we're just perfectly positioned to help you succeed in the face of all of these unprecedented challenges. I'm especially excited about our faculty. They are experts at helping students learn to navigate change and even to thrive in it. So they're going to teach you to think critically and to communicate effectively and to create innovative solutions to complex challenges. And those are skills that have never been more important and more marketable. So we're excited to have you join us and for you to start to work with your faculty. We wanted to do this today and organize an event as a way for us to touch base with you all about how we'll be supporting your students and what you can expect and the opportunities that your students are going to have while they're with us here. So let me introduce my colleagues and the other guests that we have here in the Zoom room. First is Associate Dean of Undergraduate Curriculum and Programs, and that's Dr. Cindy White. We also have Associate Dean for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. That's Dr. Lisa Flores. Our Assistant Dean for Student Experience is Jill Jones. And Director of our CMCI Residential Academic Program, which is also called ComRAP, is Dr. Erin Willis. And I'm excited that we have a CMCI parent and a member of our CMCI Advisory Board with us today, and that's Rich Clay. Always great to see you, Rich. And also our current CMCI student and lead student ambassador, Max Gannett. So thank you all for joining us, and thanks for being part of this. And I'll just turn it back to Tayler to get things going.
Great. Thank you, Dean Bergen. So I have some questions that I want to ask our guests, but I'm sure that our audience does too. So you might have seen in the chat. Please post any questions that you do have in the comments. We will answer as many as we can. But first, I'll just pose a question to Cindy White. Cindy, can you talk a little bit about the curriculum in CMCI and what sets it apart?
Thanks, Tayler. Welcome, everyone. We're so excited for you all to join us and to get a chance to talk a little bit about what we expect the year to hold. One of the things that's most notable about the CMCI curriculum is that in all of our majors, we see a good mix of both practical skill learning and theoretical skill learning. We talk about that as praxis, the kind of intersection between those two. And in every major, students are both learning to understand the big picture and to think strategically about the kinds of things that they'll encounter later on. And they're learning the skills that they need to actually do the work that they're going to take on when they leave here. So that's a pretty important and unique feature of our curriculum. The second thing I want to mention is a course that our introductory students take called Concepts and Creativity, that focuses on helping students understand processes of media communication and information that happen across the disciplines. So it teaches students about conversation, storytelling, images, and information, and it seeks to help students work in an interdisciplinary way with one another and to think in an interdisciplinary way about how this work will require all the components of the college, media, communication, and information, to do the things they want to do when they leave here and to have an impact on society. So there are some things that might be helpful for folks to know about how our curriculum is structured and what they can anticipate.
Great, thank you. And Jill, can you tell us a little bit about the student media and club opportunities that CMCI students have?
Sure, thank you and welcome everyone. My name's Jill Jones, and I work very closely with students such as Max, who we'll hear a little bit more from his experience of being a very involved student in our college. I work really closely with students as far as our different student media and organizations and what involvement and engagement really looks like in our college. So we start sharing information about the ways that students can be involved to explore not only their interests coming into college, but then what they might be learning in the classroom and trying it on for size to see if it's really a good fit for them or if they're discovering something that might be even better than they could have imagined before getting hands-on experience. So what that looks like in our college is anything from a traditional student leadership, student government experience in our college. So really just creating opportunities for students to bolster our values and to provide leadership to their peers. This last year, our student government was able to really support their peers who they knew were having an atypical experience. So for example, providing just little pick-me-ups and support during finals and little care packages delivered to each person's door, and virtual engagement opportunities for students like collective movie nights and things like that to keep our community together. And this year, what we anticipate is more, in-person, typical, what you would expect engagement opportunities. So we're actually starting what we're calling the collective, which is a support for student leaders and organizations in our college to come together, support one another as leaders in our college. And so we have cohesion among the different opportunities that students can be engaged in. And that ranges anywhere from being involved in a live weekly production of a sports media production on a weekly basis called Buff Sports Live, to Information Buffs, which is a group of students who teach other students technical skills and abilities that they know is really valuable for students moving into the workforce, or things like The Bold, which is a brand new student enterprise that is an online media hub, so to speak, for our students who are interested in radio, in storytelling, and different media, and to get experience anywhere from writing content to delivering content to producing in front of the camera, behind the camera, booking talent, anything that you can imagine from A to Z that students would have the opportunity to explore where they might fit in their career choices moving forward. So it's really anything that you can imagine. And if it doesn't exist, students can pretty easily start something if they are having that innovative energy where they see a need and they want to start something. There's also very much support for starting new opportunities for students to engage as well. And I'll pop a link in the chat that gives you an overview of what that looks like in our college, and it will bring you to our Get Involved page so you can see for yourselves what that looks like.
Great, thank you, Jill. And then going back to Dean Bergen, what do you want parents to know right now?
Oh my gosh, that's such a great question. I guess I just want you to know how excited we are and how ready we are for your students to join us. We've gone through so many amazing things in this last year together, and we are just ready to have our students back with us on campus. There are, all of these amazing things that our campus leadership team has done to respond throughout the pandemic. We have epidemiologists on our faculty, not in CMCI, but at the university, of course. We have other health officials. We have facilities managers. Many of our professors and staff have done so much to just ensure that our campus prioritizes safety, safety for the whole community, but especially with a focus on our students. But at the same time, to have our ability to continue delivering just an excellent education for students. So we're excited to have them back. And this means also both our first year students and our second year students have not been on campus. And so we're welcoming a big group with this sort of first experience. And I have to say, we're just so confident that between all of the experiential opportunities, some of the kinds of things that Jill was just talking about, we have an interdisciplinary curriculum. And these are going to be great, wonderful experiences that your students are going to have beginning now and over the 4 years that they're with us. So I would say I want parents to know that we're ready to welcome them to a safe campus where they're going to excel and have a lot of success.
Great, thank you. And going to Lisa now, as the Associate Dean for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, can you tell us what CMCI offers to create an inclusive environment for all students?
Thank you, Tayler. DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion in CMCI is just a critical part of who we are. We try to weave it into every piece of our college so that for our students, our staff, and our faculty, everybody is involved in a community and a climate that is about thriving and about belonging. For our undergraduate students, we have a number of pieces that are particularly relevant, and that is that we have 2 folks on our staff in our DEI team who have regular office hours, and those are folks that any student can drop in to ask a question, whether that question is about how do I navigate resources because I cannot figure out how to get through this piece that I need for this campus policy or practice that I need, to I'm thinking about my career and my major and I'm not really sure what I should do. And these folks are not part of our advising team in terms of helping your students to pick the appropriate classes, but they are part of the sort of broader advising team. They're the folks who will listen to all the pieces that are going on in your students' experience and try to help them navigate. They won't have the answers, but they'll know the people who have the answers. On top of that, we have a number of more formal pieces that we have in place, and that is that we have a number of events that will go on throughout the year. These will include lunch and learns, where any student will be able to come and listen to an industry expert to hear about what it means to navigate a career in advertising or in journalism. We'll have opportunities for students to come together in social experiences, to chat and get to know other pieces. And then we also are really attentive to what happens in the classroom, because what we have learned in our college, on our campus, but really this is part of what all of the nation is talking about in higher education, is that if we want students to experience higher education as a space of belonging and inclusion, then faculty are a critical part of that. And we all need to be prepared to navigate every conversation that comes up. We need to have our syllabi really attentive to the needs of a range of our students, whether that's different kind of learning experiences to different identity experiences. And so we have, every one of your students will see a statement on every single syllabus that is about the centrality of inclusion to our college. My name is, and my email is connected to that. So if there's ever anything happening in the classroom, they can come to me and say, something's kind of weird and I don't know what to do. And then I become the person that helps them navigate. But we also have in place a series of workshops that faculty attend that help us think about what inclusion looks like. How does it that we structure dialogue? This was a big conversation last year when we had to build community in the Zoom room, which, as you all know, is just a very different thing. And so we had to learn, what does it mean to ask questions differently? What does it mean to think about how we structure the physical space of our classroom, whether the Zoom classroom or the physical classroom, and how it is that we talk about a range of experiences in the classroom, whether that's national politics around race, ethnicity, and or around any number of issues. Last year was the national election, but every year there's always something that we're talking about. And what we're always trying to do is make sure our faculty are ready to help your students think through those pieces and connect them to their academic learning, so that as they're learning the kinds of theories and skills that are relevant to their unique major and or their courses, they're also thinking about who they are as citizens in the world. And so we do that in a wide variety of ways. We're so excited to have your students back with us in person.
Thank you so much. And Erin, through your work in CMCI's residential academic program, also known as ComRap, can you tell us a little bit about what students who are living in ComRap can expect the experience to be like?
Yes, thanks, Taylor. So we're so excited for the first year students to arrive on campus. I've been waiting for this for months. The residential advisors actually moved in today, so I heard buzz in the hall, and it's just going to be a great year. Very excited. So at the RAP, things are going to be pretty much normal here in the fall. We're going to have our classes inside of the building. So we have lots of great classes right in the building. We have 2 classrooms. But we also have then social activities and academic activities. So some of the academic activities that we have going on are how to use the green screen. We're going to look at Photoshop and Adobe this year in the dorm and try to create some pieces for your student just to start practicing and getting equipped on some of those tools. We have a computer lab right upstairs on the second floor. So we want to make use of that and do some fun projects with the students, kind of drawing on the skills they're learning in class, but then also taking them outside of class so they can explore them and grow in their own way. But we have that planned, and then also social activities. Those run a gamut, could be dogs and donuts. That's always a super popular one with our students, but we also have trivia night, open mic night. We have lots of activities going on. We hope to hit the ground running, and we are ready for your students to come. Very excited to welcome them, and hopefully I'll get to meet some of you as you move in your students to Buckingham.
Great, that's so exciting. And Max is an incoming senior in CMCI who also went to ComRap. He was in Buckingham Hall his freshman year. What was the most difficult part of your transition from high school to college?
Yeah, well, stipulation here, I'm from Colorado, so but I still felt like I wasn't at home in a sense. Like I had some friends from high school that I knew, but like I didn't have a sense of kind of more community. And so where I found that community was Buckingham as well, with my peers and meeting them in the classroom, but also in the things I got involved in, whether that was ambassadors, whether that was student government, all those things allowed for that sense of community to start to grow. And just the welcome and friendliness of my faculty in information science, and also the faculty around CMCI and the upper administration, all of that was just so welcoming. And if I had a question, they're like, oh yeah, this person knows what that field is like, or I might have a better answer to help answer this question, and things like that. So it was really just nice to know that those outlets were there for that sense of community. And, CU Boulder is 34,000 students, but we have about 2,200 in CMCI. So it's really nice to have that. I know my peers in journalism, I know my peers in media studies, I know my peers in my own major. So, and also my professor. So that environment also was allowed for that transition to make it easier of feeling a little homesick, but it's, starting to make that foundation, which was really nice.
Thank you, Max. And going back to Cindy, can you talk a little bit about why some courses are remote rather than in person this fall? And we also got a couple of questions in the chat. So the first was, will CMCI 1040 and Journalism 1000 be in person? And how many students would be in a class? And what is the difference between a lecture, a seminar, and a recitation?
Okay, I'm going to tackle the technicalities last. So let me start with why some things are remote, even though we had hoped to have a large number of things in person. We do have a good number of courses in person, but as we were building the schedule in the spring, campus required us to have any courses that were over about 175 students remote. And that was because you can remember when we built the schedule in the spring, that would have been, we were actually building it in the fall, but students were registering for it in March and April. Now, I know your students, if they're first year students or transfer students, didn't register in March and April, but when we build the schedule taking into account everything on campus. And so all large lecture courses did have to have a remote component for the large lecture. So that will give you a sense of, if you're looking and you're seeing that something's remote, that's probably what's happening. It's a larger course. In most cases, those courses have what's called a recitation or a lab, and that component, because it's small, is typically in person. So you should be able to look on the schedule and see kind of how things are designated. Most of our introductory courses, CMCI 1040, the introductory courses like the Intro to Journalism or the Perspectives on Human Communication, the Introduction to Advertising, Public Relations, and Media Design, those courses run somewhere between 200 and 300 students. And so you will see them in the remote modality. But you should see that for many of them, there is an in-person recitation or lecture that allows students to get to know one another. Also, our faculty are cognizant of this and do have a year of experience kind of managing some of this. So Erin, Willis, and Kelsey Logan co-teach the large advertising, public relations, and media design introductory course. And they're really quite skilled at some ways for participation, some opportunities to bring in guest speakers, and some other things that really make that experience, even though it's remote, quite unique. So the difference between a lecture, a recitation, and a seminar, a lecture is typically a larger class where the focus is on a faculty member leading a large group of students around a set of information. A recitation is attached to that class and it's smaller, or a lab would often be the same way. And it typically meets only once a week, but gives students a chance to get to know each other, work on things, talk, all of those kinds of things. A seminar is a designation that actually on our campus means a lot of different things, but it's typically designed to focus on smaller sized courses where the emphasis is on discussion and reading. So those are some key differences. Not that there's not discussion and reading and other things, but a seminar really takes that a little kind of different direction in terms of asking people to dig in and have those conversations. And then I'm just going to look at the, yeah, so I think I've answered the question of why they meet remotely, but I will add one other thing. You might ask, well, why didn't we take all of those large things and make them in person as things wound down in the summer? And that's simply because of the difficulty of course scheduling. So once we were told to kind of move the larger things online, we used those larger rooms for some, not small, but slightly smaller classes, maybe classes of 100 students. And once the rooming processes happen, you can just think of it as a giant Tetris. There are so many dimensions and things that have to fit together. If we wanted to re-room classes, we would in fact have to change when courses are being offered. And once we've had more than 35,000 students register, we just can't go down that road. So we're sad about that for your incoming students, but we feel confident that we've got a system to help address that and invite them into our community.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Cindy. And changing gears a little bit, Rich, as a CMCI parent, what is your advice on how family members can prepare for the "I can't do this" phone call that they might get from their student?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I think be prepared for a phone call of some sort. It may not be an "I can't do this" phone call, but it may be, I'm homesick phone call. Like Max said, when you're first transitioning over into college life, for many, for my daughter anyway, who's a CMCI rising senior, it was her first time an extended, period away from home. So it was definitely different. And I think, sort of be ready to be supportive and hear them out. Don't try to fix everything right off the bat. Just try to listen a little bit, understand the experience, and sort of meet them where they are with that. I'd also strongly encourage them, and that's a theme you've heard and you'll continue to hear. Be involved, right? The more you sort of have to do and the more to have the more you can keep engaged with things, the better. In our case, we saw her get into student government, get into intramural sports, get into the CMCI ambassador with Max, get into Greek life, get into all sorts of different things. And so I think it's really something to be prepared for, because at this juncture, they really don't know what they don't know, so to speak. And there's a process of discovery in terms of realizing there's all these different aspects of life that they weren't necessarily exposed to formally. So expect the call and sort of meet them where they are, I think would be my advice in a nutshell.
Great, thank you. And Max, what advice would you give yourself if you were entering college right now?
Rich kind of alluded to it and stole it, but it's so important. I see it all the time in the work I do with students, and my own work as well, and my career ambitions, is just getting involved. Right from the start, try things. Just maybe you're interested in doing this aspect of doing some club or advertising. Maybe that might be interest. Find out it's not, well, that's okay. You learned something new. You're not going to do advertising. That's all good. But get involved, do these things. It benefits you in your career. It benefits you in finding internships. It benefits you in just life in general, just to meet people, network with people, talk to people, just, be a part of that community, because there's such a grand community in CMCI that when you get involved in these clubs and also other campus clubs as well, that it just really sets a tone for well, I know who to talk to about who's maybe a senior and I'm coming in as freshman year, and maybe they have some words of wisdom to say how to graduate, how do you do these things, like how do you tackle doing 6 internships and graduating 3 years, all those kind of things. All those things can be asked and talked to with anybody in the community, but just being involved opens so many doors to career possibilities, internships, wherever you really heart desires, because that's where your interest may lie, and you might find out a different interest that you may have never known.
Great, thank you. And going back to Jill, this is a question that popped up in the chat. So it says, Jill mentioned the school's values. What are those values that will be bolstered by the CMCI school? So Jill, I was wondering if you had some thoughts on that.
Sure. So this is such a loaded question, so to speak, in all the right and good ways that we like these types of questions. We value so many things, but I think we're really strategic in how we approach those. I think the things that we really value are integrity. So the integrity of our students, the integrity of our curriculum, the integrity that's displayed in being very student-centered and very community-focused. Generosity. So we want to talk to students. We don't want to just give them information and send them on their way. And you will see these values in the way that our academic advisors work with students, the way that our career services folks work with our students, the way our faculty work with our students, is really that generosity of time and of spirit to support students as they're navigating a huge transition. Your students are first year students transitioning, and then we have students go through transitions beyond that. And we realize that coming to CU Boulder, it's a big school and we're a community within a community. And so to be really generous with our time and the way in which we support students, I think is something I see every day in the way that we collaborate as a team of leaders in the college and in the way that we work with students and we think about how to support our students moving forward. Respect is another one. So we do a lot of work just around being key and being on top of what's happening in society, looking at how that's presenting itself at CU Boulder and then in our college. And so we're having conversations as a leadership team, we're having conversations with students. There's a lot that we're doing to respond in a way that's inclusive of everybody's viewpoints and everybody's, the way that it impacts individuals and then members of our community as well. And I feel like we're pretty transparent about that work that we're doing and what we value as a college. Sustainability is another one. So we're very conscious of our footprint. We're always thinking of ways to be innovative and to reduce waste, to reduce redundancy in our practices, even when we look at our processes that students will engage in. Is this a redundant step? Is this red tape for students? Things like that. So we're constantly assessing. And then just being responsible. I think that that's something that we have to model if we want to see that in our students. So I would say that those are our core values when it comes to us as a college. And then we're working with student media and organizations to uphold those values and in the classroom, as well as Cindy works so closely with our faculty in regards to the curriculum. I do want to ask Dean Bergen if she'd like to elaborate on that. I almost feel like this was a Dean Bergen question. So is there anything that you'd like to add to that?
Gosh, Jill, you were so eloquent in describing the values. And I would just underscore that those are the values that are part of our strategic plan. We call it a one plan, one college. And it really aligns with our campus commitment to the CU Boulder strategic imperatives. I mean, our campus has said we are shaping tomorrow's leaders. We want to be the top university for innovation. And also we want to have a positive impact on humanity. And in CMCI, we've translated those things built on the values that Jill just described. Our strategic imperatives in the college are to focus on academic and inclusive excellence, creativity and innovation, and also public scholarship and global citizenship. So those are all things that we thought as a college very carefully. As when you put together a strategic plan, it becomes something that is a living document, and you build on that and you incorporate it into all of your approaches to the world. And so when we work with our students, those are the values that move us forward. And it is for us to be able to optimize the experience for students to be in an inclusive and welcoming environment, for them to engage in their work with creativity in mind? How can we, help to solve the world's wicked problems and do this in a way that we're contributing to making a better world for everyone? And so those are all very lofty in a way, but that's what guides us as we think about the decisions that we make on a regular basis. So I'm glad we got that question. And Jill, you did such a great job in describing that. So I was really, it warmed my heart to hear you talk about it the way you did, because I didn't realize that you would have explained it that way. And it was really beautiful. So thanks for sharing that.
Great, thank you so much. And a question that came in the chat that I'm going to ask to Erin is there a ComWrap class? I don't see it on my child's schedule. So Erin, if you could kind of talk about how ComWrap classes work, how people can go about finding them and adding them to their schedules.
Yeah, so your ComWrap class on your student schedule won't be labeled ComWrap. It'll actually be one of we have, the ComWrap has 2 instructors, full-time instructors, who just teach in the wrap. But then also we have instructors from around campus that come both from CMCI and then other departments, so that your student can not only take CMCI required courses, but courses that also mean something in their general ed requirements. And so some of those classes, you can tell if it's located in Buckingham when you're looking at that schedule, but it might be anthropology or media studies, or writing. We have a lot of classes, so it won't be labeled ComWrap, but you'll know it's in the dorm because it's located in Buckingham. And then Tayler, another parent asked, if I could just keep going, another parent asked about what a day in the life of ComWrap is like. And so I would love to tell you about that, because the ComWrap is so special. It's a great place for students to kind of launch into CMCI. Even if they don't become a CMCI major, it's a great introduction to the whole campus. But a day in the life, you wake up, you probably have a roommate, maybe 2, depending on the style of room you have. But you wake up, you might roll downstairs in your pajamas. Our classes start as early as 10, or as late as 10, I should really say, right? But you come down, you go to class. You might go out to lunch with your friends, your roommate. You might have another class in the dorm. Some of your classes might be on central campus, so you might walk over there. We'll have an activity usually in the afternoon or evening, so your student can meet other students and get social. We like to expose them to some of the clubs that Jill and Max are talking about, so they can have opportunities both inside of CMCI and outside of CMCI. But we try to, we're in the building all together. So we're going to see your student, and it's a great, it's just a great space, because you start to know people right away. Whenever your student moves in, they'll already have a community. So it's pretty exciting. Thanks, Tayler.
Thank you, Erin. And another question in the chat that I'll ask to Cindy is, if a class is remote, does that mean that it is live with mandatory attendance, or recorded and can be watched at any time?
Thanks, Tayler. That's a great question. We start to make assumptions that the terminology we're using makes sense to everyone. Now, faculty do explain this, so students are not left on their own to figure this out. But a course that's designated remote does need to be attended at the time that the course is designated. And so students are expected to be there. There may be a requirement for them to contribute to the chat or to do other things. And so we use the term remote to mean a kind of synchronous class that's happening, even though it may be happening virtually through Zoom, it's happening in a kind of shared virtual space at a particular time. And that's a great way to keep students sort of connected, to help them have some regularity in their schedule and so forth. We use the terminology online to indicate things that are asynchronous and can be done kind of at a student's own pace, although there's still deadlines and so forth. And most of our first year students won't find themselves in online courses. If they are in courses that are not in person, they will find themselves in remote classes. So thanks for that question. It's a really good one, and maybe a good time to start prepping students for the fact that attendance still really matters and being present still really matters, because part of the reason you attend is because it gives you a way and a space to kind of think and connect and be focused. that can be harder to do sometimes when you're asked to do it at your own time or pace separately.
Great, thank you, Cindy. And Jill, can you kind of explain how does academic advising in CMCI work, and how can a student find out about internship opportunities?
That's a great question. So students have been connecting with likely Kira Hochtel or one of our other advisors in the academic advising unit in CMCI. And so we start connecting students with their advisors over the summer to go through this initial step of enrollment in their courses. And so students will work with their advisor throughout the fall and will explore what classes might make sense for them to take, given what their interests are, what their intended major is, and where they might want to explore outside of that major as well. So all of those conversations are actually happening relatively soon in the student's life cycle in our college, so to speak. So we like to have those conversations early. Students will work typically with the same advisor throughout their first year. We feel that that creates some stability during that transition period. And then depending on what their major is, then they'll transition to what we refer to as a disciplinary advisor. And that's somebody who's specific to their discipline, who's able to walk them through the strategic planning based on if they want to study abroad, or if they want to do an internship for credit, or if they want to do something over the summer and have it potentially count towards academic credit. All of those things that are part of the planning piece of the degree. And we want students, of course, to persist to graduate, but to also explore along the way. So their academic advisor is a key person that we really encourage students to work with throughout their time here, and to explore what's kind of fueling that passion for learning and how that might translate into their future, and to just make sure that they're aware of all of their options. When it comes to the internship piece, I will actually pop in the chat our link to our career and internship page, and we already have programming and the career and internship fair planned for fall. And students will go through any series of programs to prepare to engage in that event and to search for internships. Sometimes students will do that in their first year. We typically see students really hit the internship piece hard in their sophomore or their junior year. But first year is a really good time for students to start having conversations about how they might want to explore their learning in a hands-on environment, such as an internship or study abroad.
Perfect. Thank you, Jill. And there's been a few comments in the chat and a question that popped up in the Q&A about COVID-19 and the policies surrounding it. So Dean Bergen, one of the questions that popped up was, is there currently a policy in place for mask requirements on campus?
There is not currently in place a policy for mask requirements, but our campus and the leadership of the campus has been working closely with both our local Boulder County, and state public health officials on all of the COVID-19 related developments that are happening, both with the CDC and within the state of Colorado. And we rely on them to make decisions about this. So what the community, the Boulder community, I'm saying community, but I mean to say Boulder County Health and the state are actually making directives that we will follow. So a couple of things to know though about this. We have a pandemic response office on our campus, and we can probably pop in an update in the chat, because they have a website that gives sort of all the information, and they update it on a regular basis. But I would say that tomorrow, which is Tuesday, August 10th, the campus is hosting a virtual campus Q&A session on just this very topic. And we have a Dean's Council meeting tomorrow where I'm expecting that we're going to hear some new updates that will be in preparation for that campus virtual Q&A tomorrow. So that's from 4 to 5 p.m. Mountain Time. And maybe some of the folks who are on this Zoom call will want to tune in for that. I think the answer to the question is no, not now, but let's see what happens. And of course, we have been so reliant on leadership from our Boulder County and our state policymakers for so much of what we've done. If you think back a couple of months, they had the colorful dial that moved us from one status to another. That was so helpful because it really meant that the campus was following the best thinking in our state and our community. So I suspect that if there would be any change to that policy, it will come from leadership at the state and county level. And those are all health related folks making those calls.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And going back to Rich, I was wondering if you could go back in time and give yourself any piece of advice about having a child going to college. What advice would you give yourself?
Oh, probably relax a little bit. They've got this. Like trust the foundation that it took. You know, I've got another one. It's going to be a first year in CMCI, and it's I'm a lot chiller, I guess, with that experience than with the first one. So, you know, folks out there may have more than one child in college at the same time, but part of it is sort of trust the foundation and, you know, let them. Not everything's going to be perfect. Don't always say this is the best years of your life or overbuild it. Let them take the experience on their own terms and you know, sort of let them explore as they go, whether it's, you know, different classes and different majors that you'd never heard of, or you know, a different experience, or you know, what have it. I would just tell myself to chill a little bit and trust the foundation.
Great, thank you. And going back to you again, Dean Bergen, what is a student opportunity that you're excited for this year?
Oh, wow. So many things that I've been, you know, other people have been talking about all of these great opportunities that we have for students with student media, for example. This is the second year that our students can be involved with the BOLD, which is our new student media organization. I guess I would also say the TEDxCU, which is this great opportunity for our students to plan and work with speakers who present those spectacular TED Talks. But you know what, as I'm thinking about, I want to just grab this because I have it sitting here. The university is starting something this year called Buffs One Read. And all of the students on campus, especially our first year students, are going to read a book together. And this is the book that has been selected this year. It's called, I have to look at it, American Like Me, Reflections on Life Between Cultures. And the editor is America Ferrera, who is the actress who was in the sitcom Ugly Betty, and she's done a whole bunch of amazing stuff. She's coming to campus to talk with students, and students are going to have a chance to read this book and then break into smaller groups. It's going to be integrated into some of the classes that they're taking. But you know, it's the first year that we've done this on our campus. Jill and I were both on the committee that helped us select the book. And so I'm excited about that because it's something that is, you know, it'll connect our entire CU community, but it'll also give us good reasons to kind of build off of the ideas that are in a book that's reflections on life, from immigrants and people from different backgrounds and cultures, and yet we're all here together in one great community. So I think that's a good representation also of the realities of being on our CU Boulder campus, a community that brings people together from so many places. And as we come together, we're all buffs, and I think it'll be really exciting. So I'm excited about that.
And I'll just add that we just learned on Friday that we were able to get America Ferrara to come to campus for an event. I believe it's going to be September 1st. So we're going to actually have the editor of the book that everyone's reading come to campus, and we'll be doing some programming around it. So it's definitely an exciting year for building community.
Perfect, thank you. And a question that just popped in the chat. So there's a student who's going to be living in Williams Village. Will there be getting to know you activities prior to classes starting that are sponsored by CMCI for incoming first year students? So Jill, I was wondering if you had some information on that.
I do. So we have an amazing orientation that's planned for our students. And so it's an orientation like no other, in the sense that students will get to interact with each other in small groups. We will be in the Folsom Stadium where the football team plays, in the Touchdown Club, which is just a beautiful and very personally speaking, a very inspirational space, and just the view and I think the vibe that will be in that space, and having students come together and be able to meet their CMCI 1040 instructor and learn more about what that class is about, and then to work in activities in small groups around, their identity, or doing what could be perceived as a silly activity, but is really going to demonstrate the importance of communication in chaotic settings, and to learn about what resources are available to them. And we have a student panel, and our embedded CMCI therapist is going to be there to meet students. And we're just going to have our community come together and welcome students in a way that we haven't really been able to in what seems like a really long time. And so depending on whether your student joins us in the morning or in the afternoon, it will either end for them with a lunch, or it will end with them with an ice cream social. And that is one of many events that we will have for students along their first year. Some of those events will be specific to ComRap. So if students are living in Kitteridge, then those are activities that those students will have. But students, regardless of where they live, will have opportunities for community development. And that is part of what, like, our student government, for example, does, is they will sponsor events that are open to the entire community. In the spring, for example, we do a student showcase that showcases original student work across all majors of the college. And that is a community building event. And so I really think that we'll be doing much, much more. We've kind of been in a holding gate for a while, and I think we'll just be able to do so much more for students in person and in those ways that you would hope your first year student would be able to engage in. So the long answer, I guess, to that question is yes.
Perfect. Thank you. And another question that came in, you were talking about internship opportunities before. Someone asked, what is a good study abroad program for a CMCI major? So Jill, or anyone else, if you have insight on programs that you recommend in terms of study abroad, just in generally, I just graduated this past spring as a CMCI student. And so there's lots of opportunities in terms of not only doing specific CMCI courses, but then also fulfilling general requirements. And so there's different global internship opportunities, especially when it comes to storytelling, information, communication, types of careers. There's a lot of different companies all across the world that are looking for students who have these types of skills. And so what's great is that we have an entire education abroad program that you can look for different programs. You can work with your advisor. And if you have an interest in studying abroad, that's something you can bring up starting your very first meeting with your advisor and start planning for that. So I don't know if anyone else has any recommendations of programs that come to mind.
I'll just mention that we have a list via the Education Abroad group that identifies some programs that are well suited for our students if they want to earn course credit that will go toward their degrees in CMCI. There's a little bit of a bias there toward English-speaking countries, simply because, for instance, England and Australia provide some great opportunities for our students to learn to use some of their media skills with media in those countries. But we have students go abroad all the time to a whole range of countries. There are more than 300 opportunities on campus that allow students to do virtually any country they're interested in. And very popular with our students are some in Europe that allow students to do sort of 3 sessions in different locations in Europe across the time that they're there during a semester. So lots of really fabulous opportunities, and it kind of depends on what students want out of the experience and whether or not they're seeking to connect things that will help them complete courses within their major, or if they want a broader experience that allows for different kinds of cultural engagement.
Great, thank you, Cindy. And Jill, kind of talking about these internship and study abroad opportunities, in general, can you talk about what does CMCI provide its students in terms of job readiness or career preparation?
That's a great question. And I would be asking that too, if I was the parent of an incoming student. So I'm glad to get that question. So we have a whole bunch of folks who work directly with students around career exploration and to really have those one-on-one conversations with students. So we have a career advisor who's available to meet one-on-one with students, similar to what an academic advisor would do, in the sense that they can meet one-on-one with students and really have that conversation around career exploration and connecting them to resources that will help them explore what those preliminary thoughts might be about the likes, the dislikes, or what they're seeking in a future career. We also have peer advising. We also have a team of folks who help us with the programming around career readiness. So anything from what we have as a virtual resume tool that you can start online and put in your preliminary draft of your resume, and it can provide you with feedback, and then you can meet with somebody to distill what that feedback really means, and then you can kind of go from there and then make a one-on-one appointment with somebody after you've gained a little bit of experience, and figure out how to represent that in a resume, and then how to leverage that resume at our career and internship fair, for example, or when contacting somebody who you might be interested in doing an internship with. And so we have folks that are available to students all along that way of that progression that you might envision, going from an incoming student with some experience from high school or up until that point, and then really having discussions about how to build upon that and how to tell the story behind it. I think our career team is really about telling that individual story behind your experience, and how to use the experience to illustrate what the skills are that you have, because the skills that our students have are so flexible and adaptable depending on what type of work it is that they are interested in doing. And so it's really practicing how to bring that experience to life in a way that shows their readiness. And I do want to just say, what we hear from employers and folks that do host our students in internships is that we have almost 100% employer satisfaction rate, in the sense of when they answered that question of would you hire a CMCI student in the future as an intern, they're saying yes over and over and over again, to the point where we have almost 100% satisfaction with our employers, which I think just blows me away from a statistical standpoint, because we have a lot of students who do internships. So I just would like to say that I think we have a great team of folks who work individually with students, and then work on the employer side to make sure that there's an understanding of what is reasonable work, and what is it that they're looking for based on what is it that our students are able to do, and making sure that there's a good match along the way, and that students are understanding what the expectations are, and vice versa for the employers that they're matched with.
Hey, Tayler, can I jump in on this one for a second?
Of course.
So this is with not just my parent hat, but my CMC advisory board member hat. And one of the things that's been really gratifying as a member of that board, my and I come from all different industries. We have experience in a lot of the different areas that CMCI focuses on from a disciplinary perspective. We've put together over the past couple of years a number of sort of get a job academies and mentoring opportunities where students from any of the CMCI focus areas can come in and speak with us, whether it's in marketing and stratcom, PR, sports, media, journalism, information science. Many of us come from tech as well. So there's a great opportunity there for students, particularly as they get sort of the upper divisional level, to begin to interact through these academies and other experiences that they have, workshops and things like that, to network, build out their LinkedIn profiles, and really have some advocates with deep industry experience working with them as well. So that's been a really gratifying thing. And many of us end up doing one-on-one mentoring with students during their final years and post-graduation as well. I have probably 5 or 6 examples of that personally, and I'm sure my colleagues on that do it as well. And we do that in very close partnership, obviously, with Dean Bergen and the Jill and Cindy and the rest of the leadership team. And it's a really great way for us to keep a finger on the pulse of the student experience, and for them to start to grease the skids for when, postgraduate life and sort of the last year here too. So.
Yeah, I have to jump in quickly and thank Rich for being not just a parent on this panel, but also a member of our advisory board that came up with the idea for this great academy. But I also have to say, you'd think after a year and a half, we'd all know how to use Zoom, but I haven't been on a panel before. Well, a couple times, but so we've got, apparently there are 2 levels of chat, and Rich asked the question in our panelist chat, is the Paris program still on? So it's like, what's the Paris program? I should let Rich talk about it because he knows all about it. But we have a program that goes in the summer. Two of our faculty members from the advertising, public relations, and media design department take a group of students for an international experience. They go to Paris, they visit different advertising agencies, different organizations that are advertisers, and they learn a lot about the sort of differences and similarities. And so I sent a text out that went apparently to everybody. I don't know if it's on, but Cindy might know. So if you saw that and wondered, what is she talking about? I didn't realize that it went to all of you, but I'm glad it did, because Cindy has responded with the right answer, which is that, of course, it was on hiatus last year, but we hope to have the program back this coming summer. So it's a super exciting program for students. I know they love it. And Rich, did your daughter go on it, or do you just know about it?
So she tried to go on it twice, but thank you, COVID-19, both times it got sort of shuttled off. So no is the short answer. She didn't, but was accepted to it and ready to go if it weren't for the pandemic.
She can still go after graduation. We'll give her special dispensation.
Indeed, special dispensation.
There you go.
Perfect. And the last question within our chat is there an orientation calendar of events? So Jill, if you can kind of talk about how do people stay up to date on what's happening during Welcome Week and orientation, and where they should be going and when?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So our new student and family programs team on the campus level has likely been communicating with you all through their communication stream and linking you to the overarching welcome events that happen throughout the end of August through early September. So it's no longer a welcome week, it's kind of like welcome season. So there's a lot that's going on, not only on the campus level, but then within our college as well. So what I would suggest, and I will go ahead and put it in the chat as well, of course, is to keep your eye to what's happening on the campus level for the welcome events, and then our orientation will be listed on the CMCI events calendar, as well as future events that will then be rolling out throughout the fall, and those are related to social activities, to student engagement activities. So all of our leaders for our media and organizations will put their club meetings and their events on that calendar as well, in addition to college-wide events such as that student showcase and things like that students may want to know. So I'll put the link to both of those in the chat so you know where to direct students to in case you're hearing there's nothing to do and you can say, oh wait, but here's more. So I'll put those links in there so we can help our students find out all of the things that they can be engaging in.
Perfect. Thank you. And another question that just popped in was, how would a parent get involved that has experience relevant to CMCI? So I don't know if Rich or Dean Bergen wants to talk about that.
Well, there are so many different ways. I guess one way is just let us know that you'd like to be involved and we can reach out. I would say being involved with the academy is one thing, but also, we frequently have alumni and parents help us through guest lectures in classes, hosting interns, learning about how to do that and setting something up, and organizations that you're affiliated with, I think is one way. Cindy, I saw your mute go on and off, so maybe you have other ideas too. That's the universal sign now that I have something to say. So maybe others might want to jump in with other ideas.
No, I'm just, as always, clicking around and not pushing the right thing. But I'll just say that, of course, let us know who you are, what you have experience in, and how you'd like to help. And we'll see if we can find ways to connect you with whoever that is, whether it's a faculty member or it's one of our programs like Rich mentioned, or other kinds of ways that we are connecting students and professionals. So thank you. And I want to just give a plug to the new student and family programs. If you're a parent, take a look at all the things that are happening. It really is helpful to be able to say, there are 6 things happening this week. You should go to one. So occasionally students need a little nudge to kind of take that step to try something new, but it's certainly worth it.
Perfect. Well, thank you all so much. And thank you to everyone who submitted their questions. This has been recorded, so it will be uploaded to CMCI's YouTube afterwards. But thank you all. That wraps up our live panel. And If you do have any further questions, please feel free to reach out in the future.
And thanks to Tayler for hosting us today, and for Max to be here, and Rich and all of my colleagues. This was great. It was so wonderful to have a chance to connect with parents. So hope it was valuable for you all, and thanks so much for being part of this with us.
Take care.